This podcast is a proud member of the Fan Hub 100. Football without fans is nothing, so we've partnered with Fan Hub to put fans first. Search Fan Hub app to play your part in the journey.
Welcome back to the Mackem in the Middle podcast, and once again our unbeaten streak does continue after we did draw 1-1 away to Peterborough in a game that was labelled as the most important game of the season so far for numerous reasons. But as I said, did finish 1-0. Peterborough opened the scoring, and we did get an equaliser 10 minutes till full time with Aidan McGeady getting the goal. And John is with me to talk about all aspects of the game. You doing well, mate?
Yeah, I'm okay, mate. Can't complain. Yourself?
I'm doing very good today. Doing very good. Obviously, I spoke with Michael after the Oxford game. We did briefly talk about this game, and the one thing that I said to Michael was, it's a must-win game for Peterborough and a must-not-lose game for Sunderland. So, all in all, a 1-1 draw. Both teams get a point. We're still in control of promotion. It's not a bad result at all, really, is it?
No, I don't think sort of looking at it, I've probably calmed down a little bit because on full time I was annoyed, and that was not. It wasn't an annoying thing, as in, they've bottled it, which I've seen a lot of reaction today about that. I don't think that's the case. It's more of a I just wanted that positive result and thought we could get that positive result, and even though we did try and. I'd say they were more worried about us than the other way around. So maybe looking at it on the whole, because it is in theory still in our hands, and maybe a point, isn't a bad result, because they're still going to be looking over their shoulders as our whole. So we'll take it. It was probably billed as the big game and a defining game and this, but obviously with the result and what we've still got to come, it's probably not really an important game at all now. It's done, it's dusted, and it's still in our hands. Game in hand. It's maybe a slight bit of pressure to because the games in hand have not always served us well, but maybe it's just a different term with this team.
Yeah, because it's a very similar time of the season, very similar stage of the season in terms of the games in hand that you mentioned, to the situation which I'm sure you remember very well, to what we found ourselves under Jack Ross. I think we were third under Ross. I think we had 2 games in hand on top. If we'd won them games in hand, we would have got promoted, I think. But we fell short that time. What do you think we need to do differently this year to make sure that doesn't happen again, other than obviously win the games?
I think it's not necessarily what we have to do, because I think we can do. But this team seems a lot more resilient. Doesn't know how to lose. We're on a massive good streak. We're putting a lot of hoodoos to bed. We've beaten your Fleetwoods and your Burtons, and winning at Wembley and that type of thing. And this squad's just got a knack of just getting the job done. Like we say, we're not going to win every game. Sometimes we've got to take a point, even though we've played okay. And probably, it depends which way you look at it, but we maybe could have won today on the chances we had. But it's just a case of getting those important wins. We know it's the silly ones that are costing us, not these games, because taking a point away to your rivals is a good result. It's it's when you fall at your Shrewsbury's or your Plymouths, that's where we know we've gone short. So if we can eradicate the stupid results, and that's where we'll gain the points to obviously get us out of this league.
Yeah, and after the game, I was happy with the point, because again, it's kind of as you were before the game. Nothing changes. Goal difference stays the same. Point difference stays the same. Obviously, Hull move 2 points away from you, but we've still got them to play the 2 games in hand on them. But I've looked at the fixtures that we've got, the fixtures that Peterborough have got, and looking at the games that we've got left. Obviously, 8 games to go. We've got Charlton, Wigan, who is a team that on paper you'd expect to beat. You've got Blackpool who are in great form, and I think they're only 8 points behind us now. Got them twice. You've got Hull, and then you've got Accrington, Plymouth, and Northampton. A lot of them games are winnable games, but at the same point, you look at Peterborough's games: Swindon, Northampton, Gillingham, Charlton, Doncaster twice, and Lincoln. Now, when you look at the games that we've got left, obviously, again, it is in our hands. If we win our games, we go up regardless what happens. But does the remaining fixtures kind of take away the importance of that point at all, do you think?
I'm not sure. Like you say, it's in our hands, and I think we're at a stage where we are capable of making that count, as opposed to when we're under Ross. It's all well saying, but don't worry, we've got the games in hand. We know that team's mentality just wasn't there, and it showed throughout the whole season. We weren't able to get top spot. We weren't able to really get into second. We weren't able to do the final. We weren't able to sort ourselves out in the playoffs. The games in hand didn't work. Do you know what I mean? So it's a very much a different mentality that we've got at the moment, and even Peterborough's running. They're not. We know they're not going to be consistent enough to, to go on a run maybe like we did. And we've, it doesn't matter who we're playing, and it's not in a cocky way, but we've got, we've got the squad to just get the points that we do need. Our home form's quality, and we've got the best away form in the league, so that will serve us well. And like you say, as long as 4 or 5 wins, couple of draws, and we'll probably get us in. And we've still got to play Hull. We've still got 2 games in hand over them. I don't know where that would put us. Obviously, if that all went to plan, and you'd expect us to drop points, it may be the odd draw here and there. So you've got to expect that from them as well. They can't keep up that consistency, I don't think. So as long as we hit one of those, those playoff spots, one of those automatic spots, then, we'd all take it. Don't forget the playoffs. We'd take the automatics any day.
Absolutely would. We'll look at a team that did start the game for Sunderland, and there was 3 changes. Obviously, Lee Burge started in goal, Max Power, Dion Sanderson to go 9, and Callum McFadzean. Jordan Jones, Carl Winchester, Grant Ledbetter, Aidan McGeady, Ross Stewart, and Charlie Wyke. The 3 changes were, of course, Winchester, Ledbetter, and Stewart in to replace McLaughlin, Scowen, and Lyndon Gooch. Max Power moved to right back, and Denver Hume returned to the squad for the first time since December. Going into the game, do you think you got the starting 11 right, especially in midfield?
I think the midfield, to be fair, actually did okay. I think it was control the game, and pick our moments. Hence why your Ledbetter's in there. To be fair, I thought he did okay. There was a couple of moments we needed to spring and attack quickly, but we didn't. I was a little bit. It was a strange one having McLaughlin there and then putting Power right back. I didn't think it was Power's best game. But then obviously the big surprise was Stewart and Charlie Wyke up front. And even if we're honest, after the game it didn't really work, to be fair. But you got to give Johnson credit for maybe going for it in a tight game at the top. You could say, oh, we'll just play for the point, like Peterborough did. At least we were a bit bold in our selection and saying, right, we're going to go for this and let's try it. Albeit it didn't really work, when we started.
Yeah, and even the subs that he made later on in the game showed that he wanted to win it, didn't he? Because I hate to keep bringing it up, but you got previous managers will say instead of a certain man, but they were always reluctant to make too many changes. But you could see that we weren't potentially going to get anything out of the game at the point. I think he made 4 subs. Obviously, Lyndon Gooch, O'Brien, Denver Hume, and Conor McLaughlin came on, and it was just nice to see that he noticed what we needed on the pitch. He realised that something needed to change. And he did it quite early in the second half as well.
Yeah, it's very nice to see. And you're only, that's quite a simple thing. You know what I mean? Sort of Pep Guardiola will bring on, a wealth of talent at Man City and that type of thing. And it's the sort of thing, we've been starved of by, dour managers. And it's not even this revolutionary, tactic. Do you know what I mean? It's always been there. We don't need to make a substitute on 87th minute and, we're 2-0 down at Bristol Rovers and bringing Will Grigg on in the 89th minute. It's like, that's not going to do anything. Let's be reactionary. Maybe the subs today could have come, 5 minutes earlier, but at the end of the day, it's, that's hindsight, isn't it, for when Peterborough score. But like you say, it's nice to see those positive changes, because we know when McLaughlin comes on, obviously we're pushing power in midfield, so he's going to push up higher. McLaughlin's fairly good, going forward. Obviously, Gooch is good going forward. Nathan O'Brien's a different outlet to Ross Stewart, and then you've got Hume, who you'd expect. We didn't really use him, but you'd expect him to be a lot more, sort of attacking intent than Callum McFadden would give you, and maybe give McGeady a free role. So yeah, it's nice to see him. A lot of tactics, changing throughout the whole game, as opposed to rigid. Let's just keep it all the same, trust it, and if it's not working, well, that's just tough and ride it out. So yes, it's nice to see that flexibility and using the squad's flexibility. Do you know what I mean? We've got a lot of good players in the squad. We've got a squad. Do you know what I mean? Even Chris Maguire couldn't get in the squad today. I don't believe he's injured. He would have probably made some sort of contribution today. So he can't even get in the squad. So that shows you at the moment how strong the squad is.
Yeah. Well, Peterborough got the game underway, but it was Sunderland who had the first real effort of the game. Stewart headed the ball down to Charlie White, whose volley was deflected wide for a corner. Aidan McGeady had a chance, but just neither side really had the quality in the final third. Obviously, the opening 25 minutes, Sunderland dominated a lot of the possession. Every time Peterborough got on the ball, there was a lot of pressing, a lot of movement off the ball just to close the gaps down, to make sure Peterborough had no space. And realistically, the hosts didn't have anything to do with the game in the first 25 minutes. Was it somewhat disappointing that we didn't take advantage of that in the opening, I suppose, half an hour?
Yeah, a little bit. I think we're not always rewarded for our dominance. There's games gone by where we haven't really done anything and we've scored. So it's sort of swings and roundabouts. But I'm probably slightly worried that we're not using Charlie White to maybe his. He seems to be going through a little bit of a barren spell. After absolutely firing on all cylinders. So that's maybe a little bit of a worry, and maybe something of Johnson to think about, because he, in fairness, he does only need one or two chances, but he's not really getting the clear cut ones. But yeah, the first 25, I thought we were okay. It was a bit like the Pompey game. We just controlled it whilst not being absolutely ruthless. But we, if we do score, that probably brings them out a little bit. Whereas they were happy because it was 0-0. They were sort of happy to sit in, and they were very deep, to be fair.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that frustrated me the most in the first half, and I think you mentioned it on Twitter as well, was obviously I think it was Reid and Dan Butler both picked up yellow cards quite early in the game for fouls on Jordan Jones. He was involved a lot in the first half an hour. He could beat his man, and they couldn't deal with him. Every time he got the ball, he beat his man, they'd take him down. And obviously that's how Butler and Reid got a yellow card. But when they picked up the yellow card and they were exposed, especially down the left, obviously they can't really make a challenge on Jones, because if they get it wrong, they're sent off and they were man down. But when that happened, we just kind of seemed to ignore Jordan Jones for the rest of that half.
Yeah, it's a strange one. Even in the second half, we didn't seem to give him the ball, and a lot of times he was, we love to play the switch ball, but we didn't really look for it. And like you say, I pointed out straight away, as soon as the guys are booked, that's it. Give the ball to Jones in the next 5-10 minutes and let him go at him, because he showed when he did get the ball, he just drift past players, and players have to foul him, and they can't keep fouling him. So it'd work in our favour, but that's not. It's something that we, I think we do struggle on that front. I'm surprised it hasn't been picked up on. It's something that we have struggled on, and that's just little. Do you know what I mean? I'll even in amateur football, that's quite a an easy thing. Right, get the ball to him, get it down the wing, because he's either got to have an absolutely awesome game, which is not going to be the case 9 times out of 10, or he's going to foul you, or you're going to go past him. So it's just a little bit of naivety that maybe needs stamping out. And because we didn't give Jones the ball, we've had to bring him off. And when he was injured, we were all clamouring for him. Do you know what I mean? To come back in, he comes back in. We didn't really use him again. So yeah, it's a tough one there.
Well, after the first 25, 30 minutes or so, Peterborough did start going to the game. They had a few shots. I think it was Sammy Smodics tested Lee Burge for the first time from the first mistake from Callum McFadden that we will end up talking about. Lego 9 was called up quite a few times to make some important blocks, some big tackles, some important headers. I think, again, Smodics was involved again. after, again, McFadzean was caught in possession and went out for a corner. Nothing came of that. But both sides continued to push forward in the first half, but obviously neither were able to take the lead. It did finish the first half at 0-0. Sunderland probably the happier with the first half. They had a lot of possession, but didn't really do too much with it. But realistically, second against third, two really top teams. And I said on Twitter, arguably the two best teams in the league and all the top. But every time I've watched them, they haven't impressed me too much. Peterborough play some good stuff. I suppose going in at half time at 0-0 was kind of expected going into the game, wasn't it?
Yeah, probably. I mean, you see the pictures of them, waterlogging the pitch before the games. They're sort of worried about us playing football, which is quite a positive to take in our, from our perspective. But you don't want to go hell for leather. You sort of testing the water and then see what comes of it. And obviously, Peterborough did, they let Winchester and Leadbitter have a lot of the ball in the middle, which was quite surprising. Whereas we struggle against teams on a high press. So I was quite surprised they didn't really press us either. But yeah, 0-0 half time. They probably had the clearer chances. Down to some poor finishing maybe. But yeah, 0-0 half time is probably the right result.
Yeah. Well, the second half got underway, and I think it was in the first 3 minutes or so, Peterborough had quite a good chance. It was on the volley. Sanderson's header found, again, Sammy Smodics, who was involved a lot for Peterborough offensively, but his volley he fired over the bar. And again, shortly after, Sunderland won a free kick in a very good position, in a position that you would expect McGee to hit the target. And from that position, if he does hit the target, it's a goal. But he did put it just wide, hit the side netting. But other than them two chances, the first 15 minutes or so were quite quiet. A few corners for each team, defended well, poor balls into the box. And then Callum McFadzean, third error of the game, was again beaten far too easily by Smodics. He broke through the defence, put a ball just wide. And then again, minutes later, McFadzean, I'm not entirely sure what he was doing. He wanted a foul. For me, it was never a foul, but obviously we'll talk about it. He was beaten far too easily. Dembele was open at the back post for a powerful finish, but a pretty easy finish to give the host the lead 1-0. And the first thing I'll ask you is, do you think McFadzean has any shout in the world for a foul to be given on him there?
On first viewing, I was screaming for the foul.
Yeah.
But then when you do watch it back, it's just sort of a coming together. And McFadzean almost plays for it.
Bit, doesn't he?
Yeah, and if you play for the foul, you don't get it. There was one, I think, on our one, in the first half, and their player sort of played on it, and it wasn't a foul against Power, I think, and then someone smashed Jones down, and then they're screaming as if it's the same, and it's like it's not the same. But yeah, McFadzean just seems to sort of lean into him and almost pretend like he's being held. I don't know why, but even if that does happen, which is ridiculous anyway. As 4 or 5 of our players has just stood flat-footed and just sort of don't move, and that's they still have quite a lot to do, to be fair, to still to score. So it's I'd say McFadzean error is starts it off, but then 4 or 5 of them just literally switch off for 10 seconds and bang, it's 1-0, and we're against it.
Yeah, and I haven't watched the goal back yet. I don't know if I will, but when I was watching it at the time, obviously Dembele, he only just came on as a sub. He was on the left-hand side. He seemed to have a load of space. Obviously, Power, I think, was at right back at the time. Obviously, I don't think the subs had been made by then. And he just seemed to be nowhere near the man that he possibly should be near.
No, but again, to be fair, none of them were. Sanderson was sort of out. I don't know where he was, because the guy's literally got a free shot on Burge. And the guy's running into the box, and Luke O'Nine's, nowhere near him. The guy who's coming into the box. So it was, like I say, it was just 4 or 5 of them just switching off, and for 10 seconds, bang, it's a goal, and that's the difference in this league. Whereas you look at their back four, for Peterborough, they didn't really switch off at all. I thought they were quite solid, to be fair, and McGee didn't get in, nor did Jones, and Wycombe Ross Stewart never had a sniff either. So we've had to score from a free kick, from one bit of quality. So that's the difference.
Yeah. Well, the goal that Peterborough scored obviously put them 1-0 up, and the table as it stood put them 5 points ahead of us when they were leading. Obviously, not ideal position to be in. Even if the game had finished 1-0, we win the game in hand, we're still behind them, we're still in their hands. So Lee Johnson saw what we saw. He knew he had to make changes, and like I said earlier, he did make changes. He made 4. Lyndon Gooch, Aidan O'Brien, Denver Hume, and Conor McLaughlin came on. I'm not entirely sure who went off. It all happened at the same time. But they did make a difference. Josh Scowen came on, he got the ball, he started driving forward with it, and that's one of the things that he does do when he's in the team. Sometimes he gets criticism for his control on the ball. He often gives it away far too cheaply, but on this occasion he drove forward, he was fouled on the edge of the box. And another great position for McGeady. We know how good he is at set pieces, especially free kicks from around the edge of the box. And this time he did find the back of the net. I want to say the top corner that he found, but it wasn't. It was interesting goalkeeping, I will say. But he hit the back of the net, drew the game level 1-1, game on. Great finish, but like I said, the goalkeeping was slightly questionable for that one.
Yeah, it was a little bit dodgy because obviously they're saying straight away it's in the top corner, but we know it's not. I think the keeper's just a little bit late going, and McGeady obviously finds the shortest guy on the wall and finds the gap. And then you got to take into consideration the wind because it was absolutely blowing a gale there as well. So,
yeah,
if it goes over the wall, and then the wind sort of carries it, the keeper's getting nowhere near it. Let's be honest. He didn't even get up to that height level.
yeah.
But then again, if that's a free kick against us and Lee Burge does that, I'm probably, questioning a little bit. But obviously, because it's for us, we'll take it all day long.
Yeah. Well, obviously the game was level. It was 1-1, and both sides started looking for the winning goal, and it would have been a huge goal if anyone did get it. But it did finish 1-1, with, like I said earlier, the point benefiting Sunderland probably more than it did Peterborough. But like I say, you look at the games we've got left. We've got 8 games left. Got Hull still to play. We've got 2 games in hand on them. It is still entirely in our hands. But from the 8 games we have left, how many points do you think we need to try and pick up to at least cement our place in the top 2 come the end of the season?
I think we definitely need to go unbeaten. I think maybe you could probably maybe do it with 5 wins because I don't think the top 2 can just win all their games. I think that's what they'd have to do to keep us at bay. Whereas if we win say 5 and draw 2, I think that's enough because obviously we've got to play Hull, and you would obviously not counting our chickens, but you'd like to think that we can go to Hull and pick up a result. We could even probably afford to draw if we win our games in hand. But again, it's another, we need to do the business. Obviously, elsewhere and before that, we've got a lot of tough games coming. But I just think we've got that. I keep saying it. I just think we've got that knack of getting those results. But because of the draw today, I think those games do go up in stature a little bit. We've got Charlton Saturday. That's going to be a massive game, probably even bigger than maybe this one. And then it's on to the next. It's literally take it game by game. Let's just get these points on board, and literally see where we are after every game. But as long as we don't lose, we need to make sure I'd say 5 games, and then draw 2, and we maybe afford even 1 loss in there maybe.
Yeah, and like you say, Peterborough was a huge game. Hull will be a huge game, but there's no game bigger than the next game, is what people say, really, isn't it? Charlton, you win that game, that was a huge win. You beat Accrington, that was a huge win. At this stage of the season, especially with the points that we have now, every win is a huge win, regardless of who it's against, regardless of the performance. Like you say, it's just about getting 3 points, really, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's the momentum is still there. We're still unbeaten. We're still a force to be reckoned with, and it's. I think we're still favourites, to even win the league, and Hull are, a few points ahead of us. We've still got, like I said, we've still got to do the business. I still fancy us to do it, but yeah, those games doesn't matter if we're playing, Burton Albion Saturday or Charlton or Hull. These games are like our big cup final games. We got to take them, literally one by one. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's not look for, we'll get a point here and 3 points there. Let's do the business in one game and we'll go to the next. Let's have a real professional attitude towards it.
Yeah, one game at a time. And we will move into the play ratings from the game. And as we always do, Lee Burge we will start with. And he made some important stops, including one from Luke O'Nien, which I'm not entirely sure what O'Nien was doing. I think the commentators thought he was trying to put it behind for a corner. Only real mistake Luke O'Nien made in that game. But I went with a 7 for Lee Burge. Like I said, made a few important saves. Didn't really have any chance with the goal. It was a good finish, powerful finish. So a 7 for me.
Yeah, same. I've gone for 7. I thought it was steady. Again, good on the ball. And like you say, made those important saves. Couldn't really do anything with the goal. Yeah, steady Burge performance. 7.
Yeah. Max Power started right back, and a lot of the attacks that we do have in games tend to come down the right-hand side when he's at right back. He gets on the ball a lot. He looks for that ball down the line to Jordan Jones or Lyndon Gooch or whoever's playing on the right-hand side in that game. But I don't think he had too much involvement in the game, and he gave the ball a lot. He gave the ball away a lot when he had it. So I went with a 5 for Power.
Yes, same. I've gone with a 5. I thought he did actually really frustrate me today. And even when he went into midfield, a lot of times just lost the ball. We just need a bit of composure, foot on it, and just look for the simple pass. Do you know what I mean? He's not just give it to the boys. Give it to Gooch, give it to McGeady. Not trying to absolutely play that Hollywood ball all the time. And that's it really did frustrate me today. And obviously he's in. I don't even know where he was when the Dembele scores the goal. So again, not very good. But then I don't think we should be playing in there if we've got Conor McGowan fit. He can easily go midfield, and I'd still have Max Power midfield over Winchester and Ledbetter. So it's a strange one for me.
Yeah. Deon Sanderson once again started at centre back and is still our only fit centre back at the moment. And he showed his pace again. He recovered well when Peterborough did try and counter attack. Defensively, he looked quite comfortable. Obviously, there is questions over his positioning for the Peterborough goal. But there was a few times he was caught in possession, and as a League One player, you would kind of think, oh, he's going to lose the ball there. They're going to get me on the attack. But his strength on the ball was good. I think there was a few times he did a 180-degree turn to get the ball and play it wide. So again, went with a 7 for Sanderson.
Yeah, I'll go for 7. Yeah, I thought he was okay. Like I say, he's good on the ball. He's got pace and strength, and a couple of times he got back. When his man had beaten, and sort of did a 180 and brought the ball out. So I'll give him a 7. Very good.
Yeah, and Luke O'Nien was again alongside him in defence and defended very well throughout. He got a little bit lucky when he almost turned the ball into his own net, but again, Lee Burge was alive to the situation and did push the ball past the post. There were some huge blocks that he made. There was one in particular where he just kind of flopped on the floor that I did enjoy. So I went with an 8 out of 10 for O'Nien. I thought he had a really good game today.
Yeah, same. I've gone for an 8. Yeah, I thought he was very good. Like you say, he puts his body on the line. Absolutely gives you 110%, and you can't ask for any more than that from a player who's playing in out of position in fairness and doing us a favour. So I've gone for an 8. I thought it was very, very good.
Yeah, and moving on to Callum McFadzean, and I've spoken to people after the game because sometimes I do give him a bit more stick than he perhaps deserves, but I spoke with a few people after the game today and they all seem to be on the same side as me, and his positioning again was just awful. There's no other way of putting that. I think there was one time, I think it was Jack Taylor, he just put a ball over the top and McFadzean was just kind of stood in the middle of nowhere. He had no idea where the Peterborough attackers were, and then as we see quite a lot from McFadzean, he'll turn and just kind of jog back instead of running back to get into defence to mark his man. And very poor defending for the goal. Obviously, he wanted the free kick. I don't think he's really ever going to get that free kick. If he was, it would have been very soft. To me, I think he's just realised, I'm not going to get the ball. I'm not going to get there quick enough. Let's see if I can get the foul. He didn't. They get the ball in the box and they scored from it. And his passing, just aimless. There was a few balls. He went down the wing to McGeady. It was nowhere near him, nowhere near Charlie White. Just went in the middle of both of them. And I think I put something on Twitter because I think McFadzean tried to play the ball into McGeady. It went out of touch, and you could just see McGeady just shaking his head, smiling because I needn't say any more. But I went with a 2 for McFadzean.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, I'd probably say between a 3 and a 4. Like you said, positionally was terrible, and the annoying thing is if you're caught out of position once, I would then expect I would expect your captain and your left centre back to be saying, like, what are you doing? Get yourself over here. Just sit in. We know McFadzean is not Denver Hume or Ben Chilwell or any superstar left back. Just sit there, do your job, cover your position, especially away from home. We're not asking you to maraud down the left, like McGeady does. And it was all summed up, like you said, when they zoomed in on McGeady, and McGeady's laughing and just thinking, what the fuck are you doing? Do
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you're a left back and you're stuck in the corner, just lever it out. Even if you lever it out of play, just get your foot for it. But yeah, positionally, 3 or 4 times the ball's gone over, nowhere to be seen. He needs to help out Luke O'Nien. Do you know what I mean? Luke O'Nien probably has been covering for him, and covering his poorness almost, and papering over the cracks. And because we're doing so well, in the league, it's probably masking over McFadden a little bit. You've got to judge him in his own level because he's not that standard. But maybe it's a bit of nervousness because Denver Hume's back, everyone's clamoring for him to come back in, and it's a no-brainer now to get him back in. And McFadden's definitely the ultimate backup if everyone else in the squad's injured, because we don't, we especially in a big game, he's been trusted. Come on, we need you to step up and just be solid. That's all we're asking. Just Luke O'Nien's not the best footballer in the world, but he gives you 110%, which makes him one of the best in the team. Do you know what I mean? We're only asking for effort. Let's have some of that, shall we? So the less said on McFadden, the better after that, I think, and hopefully it's the last we have to see of him before he sadly departs in the summer.
Yeah. But yeah, we were a little bit surprised to see Denver Hume on the bench. Obviously, I don't think he's played since December. He played against Burnley. It was for the under-23s. I think he got. I think he played the full game. I'm not entirely sure. But
75 minutes he got, I think.
Was it 75? But he's on the bench. He was fit enough to play because he came on as a sub, and he might not be at 100% match fitness. He won't have been at 100% match fitness. But again, going back to the goal we conceded, McFadden just trying to move away from the poor defenders initially, but he just didn't have the pace to even get back over to the wing to block the cross, whereas someone like Denver Hume would have. And I'd like to think Denver Hume's going to start on Saturday. I will probably go crazy if he doesn't, but we're surprised to see him just start on the bench after I suppose the last 3 or 4 appearances from McFadden, which have been below par, I will say.
Well, I think with Denver Hume, I think you just have to be a little bit careful with his injury record. I was maybe surprised not to see him in the squad against Oxford. And when we are winning, maybe put him on for the last 10 just to give him a run. Because obviously we're playing a little bit of a different system. We're not playing wing backs and all those types of things that normally we think you can just slot in, but it's not always as easy as that. And hindsight, if Denver Hume does play and he does make a mistake, it's going to be, well, you've thrown him in there too early. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. You can never win. But I think maybe with what's happening with McFadden, today, and Hume coming on and actually doing okay, I think that's then a no-brainer. We're not talking about England left backs. We're talking about just playing for Sunderland at left back in League One. So it should really not make a difference, going forward.
Yeah. We're moving away from Callum McFadden, which I'm sure you'll be happy with.
Yep. That's the last rating we'll have to give him, hopefully.
Yeah, quite possibly. But we will move into midfield. Carl Winchester came into the side, and I thought he was very composed on the ball. He won his fair share of tackles, especially in the first half. But we just didn't move the ball quick enough in the first half forward. We kept the ball a lot. We had a lot of possession, but very similar to a few games this season. It was kind of sideways, it was backwards, or we went for the long ball and then there was no one else kind of around Charlie White or Ross Stewart. So I went with a 6 for Winchester. Possibly slightly harsh, but I'll go with a 6.
No, I would go for 6. I thought for what he was in there to do, I thought he did well. He was, tenacious and, winning the ball back and sort of snapping at their heels. They gave him a lot of time, him and Ledbetter. Maybe I'll be thinking Ledbetter's maybe the one who I'd have expected a little bit more. He seemed to have a lot more space and time on the ball, but for some reason always chose to turn back and go the other way. But Winchester, I thought he was okay. I was surprised he started ahead of Scowen, because at the moment I do like Scowen, but I think he plays on the high press, which we weren't really doing. So yeah Winchester was okay.
Yeah, and Grant Ledbetter was also reintroduced into the starting 11, and again, same as Winchester, composed on the ball, but just did nothing offensively. A lot of his passing was sideways and backwards. Not entirely sure if it suited the game. Obviously, in the end, we've got a point out of it, but I went with a 6 again for Ledbetter.
Yeah, it's a strange one, because I thought what he's in there to do. He did well, but I would just like to see him a couple of times. Players just shout to him and say he's got time to turn, and
Yeah.
when we do turn, we can pass through the lines, which he has got that ability. That sends us on our way, and I just don't think he does. I just don't think he did enough of that. And we weren't. It's not like we were playing against an absolute powerhouse, because they seem to just sit back. So we should have, after 10, 15 minutes, we should have recognised that, and maybe thought, we've got a bit of time. Especially with his experience, we've got a bit of time. Let's turn the net and let's maybe take, not every time, because sometimes you do need to recycle the ball and settle the game down, but, just take those risks every now and again, and that gets us going, gets us forward. And on the break, we are very, very good. So, yeah, he frustrated me a little bit on that one, but, defensively, I thought he was very good.
Yeah. Jordan Jones, as I've mentioned a few times, he was very dangerous in the first half. Peterborough just had to resort to fouling him every time he got the ball, as that was the only way they could stop him. He had one shot that I only saw one angle from it. Looked like it could have been going in the corner, but Ross Stewart decided to head it away from the goal. So I went with 7 for Jones, and personally, I don't think I would have taken him off. But obviously, he's just come back from injury, and that perhaps and probably did play a part in the decision that Lee Johnson made on that. So I went with 7 for Jones.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't disagree. I think the annoying thing is more the fact we didn't use him as opposed to him, because a couple of times he did have to go looking for the ball, and then we'd lose it, and then they'd go out wide and sort of Max Power be on his own, because he had to go looking for the ball. So that'd be my only little bit of criticism, but that's more of the team as a whole. But him going forward was, he was very good, and we need to just get in the ball to him and McGeady sort of on balance at every point we can, for what they could do. Maybe slightly frustrating, some of his deliveries didn't really make it, because we know he can put in a good ball, but we know he's going to be crucial, for the last 7 or 8 games of the season.
Yeah. And moving on to the other side, Aidan McGeady was there, and in the first half he had an effort cleared off the line, but didn't really create too much else in the opening 45. He had that free kick that did go close. If he gets on target, it's a goal without a doubt. The keeper was planted to the floor, but he did score the equaliser with another free kick with 10 minutes to go. So I went with a 7 for McGeady as well.
Yeah, same. I'm going with 7. Obviously, his quality free kick probably boosts him up, because I don't actually think he was that great in the game. I don't think his set pieces aside from the goal were great either, and that's from the whole team as well. And didn't really, he didn't really have the beating of anyone, to be fair. Tried the tricks and flicks, and it didn't really come off. But he scores the goal and probably saves us. So we've got to let him have that.
We do. And moving on to the front two, obviously Ross Stewart, I think it was his first start for the club since he signed in January, which, bear in mind, we're now in April. It is quite interesting, but he just struggled to really do anything. When he got the ball at his feet, his control was poor. He looked like he was wearing roller skates at times. And in the air, he didn't win too many. I think that obviously the one header in the first 5 minutes that he did knock down to Charlie White was possibly the best thing he did in the game. So I've went with a 4 out of 10 for Stewart. I just don't think he offered much when he was on the pitch, really.
I'd probably knock it a 1 to a 5. I thought he tried. He did do a few things, okay, but I just don't think it just didn't work for me. And him and Wyke, I was expecting them both to be, battering rams, but we didn't really. Didn't seem to work. It was bold, to go with him, but yeah, I don't think it worked today. So yeah, I'll just go for 5.
Yeah. And moving on to the last player and Ross Stewart's striking partner was Charlie White. And like I said, he's not in the greatest of form now. Obviously, prior to this game, I don't think he'd scored in the last 4 or 5 games. His goal scoring record isn't great at the moment. And again, didn't add to the score sheet today. But his hold-up play was okay at times. He linked the play up okay. There was a few neat passes out wide that we just didn't get the ball into from. But I went with a 6 for Charlie White. I just thought his hold-up play was a bit better than Stewart's, but neither really contributed too much offensively.
Yeah, I'll go for 6. Yeah, his hold-up play was decent. Trouble is, a lot of it was out wide. And he's bringing in McGeady and Jones into games, and then they're knocking the ball in, and it's only lonely old Ross Stewart in there against probably 3 defenders, where we're needing Wyke in there. We know he's quality in the air. So he probably nullified, maybe his own game. I'd like to see him, we say it every week, maybe bully, defenders, even, if he has to give away the odd foul here and there, just to show he's there. I think he needs that as well. And the pressing, frustrates me again sometimes. Sometimes he's a little bit lethargic with it, because it does start with him, the defending. So yeah, he's on a little bit of a quiet run, and we're probably getting away with it because other people are stepping up and scoring at the moment. But we do, we could do with another, 5 goals between now and the end of the season.
Yeah, and we both give him an 8, so I'm going to be bold and assume Luke 9 would have been your pick for man of the match.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, absolute quality and solid in every way.
Yeah,
and like you said, shout out to his is almost like a penguin's
Penguin
dive,
dive, yeah.
Just block it with my shoulder if I have to. Yeah,
he's done that
brilliant.
a few times this season, hasn't he?
Yeah, I've seen him. Blocked one with his chest, I think, at home, didn't he?
Yeah.
Just sort of through his body, and that's all you can ask for. A couple of other players in the squad could maybe look at that and take a bit of take a bit of that.
Yeah. Well, next game is on Saturday. We do have a 5-day break, I think it is now. Obviously, there's 8 games left till the season now, and they're not as frequent as they were a few weeks ago. We were playing Saturday, Tuesday every game. But Charlton, another big game, another game that we need to win, especially with the games at hand. What are your predictions for that one?
Is it away? Is it?
It's at home.
At home. Oh, I think we've definitely got to go for a 2-0 win. I think.
2-0 win.
Again, I don't think it's going to be a pretty one.
Yeah.
But I don't care now. Just get those 3 points by hook or by crook.
Yeah. Is Charlie White going to get on the score sheet?
Yes, he will finally, and then we'll all shut up.
Just the 1 or 2?
Just the one.
Just the one.
I think maybe Jones or Gooch will get another one.
Brendan Gooch or Jones. Interesting one. 2-0, we'll go with them. But that is all we have time for today. Appreciate you coming on again, John.
No worries. Thanks for having me as always.
As I mentioned on the Peterborough preview that we did, we will have a quiz out on Friday afternoon at some point, which John he's got his books out ready for it, don't you?
It's all upstairs, mate. I've already got it.
All upstairs. You keep saying that. You don't get too many right in these quizzes at the moment, do you?
I've got a couple of ones I've plucked out of. It's talking myself out of them. That's the one.
It is. It's the peer pressure, isn't it?
Yeah.
But there's a few new categories in there which I'm sure you will like, and it will be worth a listen. So keep an eye out for that on Friday.
That's all, folks.